lot of cash sitting around doing nothing. We should start investing that in facility improvements.
Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 2020 My Team Career Mode, episode number 53 today for the Canadian Grand Prix in Season 3. Carl expressing his desire of us wanting to spend this money sitting around, as he says, over 30 million actually we've got in the bank. We're not going to quite spend that money yet, as I did say to you guys last episode to vote on where I should spend that money on the HQs, and technically, obviously, that vote has come through, but I actually recorded this race and episode pretty much nearly straight after that previous episode. So you're going to have to wait till next time, the next one round, for us to actually spend that money accordingly to what you guys voted for. I think at the moment, durability is in the lead, and I think that's probably going to be leading the entire way still. But as I recorded this, I did not know the results of the vote. Of course, during commentary now, I do, obviously, everything in hindsight. But we move forward then towards the Canadian Grand Prix off the back of a very odd Azerbaijan Grand Prix. I think the car showed some really good pace, but Verstappen was on a two-stop. That was never going to work, and then we got forced onto a two-stop after a collision with Alexander Albon, which a lot of you were saying that I should have maybe just moved more, which I guess is true, but in the heat of the moment, I was adamant that, you know, he should have also technically stayed left. I think both of us could have done way more in that situation, me moving earlier right, but there's no kind of urgency that I don't need to move right. He should just stay left, in my opinion, but obviously that will be a difference in opinion that I think we'll just take to our graves there, personally. But we're going to move forward then in terms of upgrades. Unfortunately, we rushed that chassis upgrade to come in for this episode. It has failed. This is the first failure we've had in a long time when we rushed an upgrade. So that ultimate brakes update will have to wait until next time out. Unfortunately, we'll repurchase that, guaranteed to come in next episode then, but we won't have the advantage of that here at Canada, which will be a shame because I think the brake zone, especially the hairpin at the very end of the lap, are going to be really crucial for us, and that's where we lose some time to the AI, I feel. But obviously, I think still our car is going to be very, very quick. We've got a good car in a straight line. Last episode, as I said, Verstappen, he was on pole by 9/10, so clearly it's good over one lap at a circuit where straight line speed matters, and in the race, he would have been first if it wasn't for his two-stop. So I think actually we could have a very strong weekend here, but we'll see about the others. Mercedes brings some upgrades, but they've been kind of nowhere so far this entire season. Ferrari, McLaren, Red Bull, quite a quiet weekend for them, but we saw how quick that McLaren was in a straight line at Baku and at Monaco, and we already know how quick Leclerc could be in a Ferrari if he's in fine form. It seems like he's dipped out of form a little bit as of late, but we know from last season, Season 2, if he gets a chance, a sniff of getting some form and a good run, I think he'll come knocking. So we always got to be wary of that. And then Red Bull, they're a bit hit and miss, really. I can't really tell what's happening with Red Bull. They seem to be quick 1 second and then just not the other, so it's a bit of an odd situation. But going into this race weekend, I was actually quite worried about it because there's going to be heavy rain forecast for the entirety of Saturday. So and it's going to be dry in the race, which means we have to compromise our setup, run a dry setup essentially, and just have to kind of put up with it on Saturday. So our qualifying pace, I don't know what it's going to be like, honestly. And to cap things off, going into Q1, we were hit with a major system fault on the car.
Someone's noticed a leak in one of the coolant lines, so we're patching that up as we speak. Hold tight for now until we've checked everything over.
So this kind of long delay, not really ideal, I can't lie. Over 6-7 minutes there of Q1. At least it's in Q1 and not Q2 and Q3, otherwise that really would have been quite an issue. But, in the wet conditions, having to compromise and have lower wings than I kind of want to in heavy rain, because obviously the race is fully dry. So there's no point setting up this car for these conditions. We have to set it up for tomorrow's race where the points are. It means going into this now, I filled up on fuel for 3 consecutive laps, but you can see how tricky it is. I'm trying to suss out how early I can get on the power, and you're basically tiptoeing over that first lap, trying to suss things out. We come in P22, very slow lap time, not surprised, but I think we can gain pretty much over a second or two pretty much on that second lap, because that's how much confidence you build by just doing one lap, just sussing it out. And, that's why also, all the times in real life you have the teams doing track guides and whatnot, and having installation laps and, sighter laps and banker laps, because you build up that confidence in yourself and in the car and get to grips with it, especially in the wet conditions. That's why in real life as well, they fill up on fuel a lot of the times for consecutive laps, whereas in the game, the player can do it, but the AI, I've never actually seen the AI do lap after lap. They seem to just go for one lap, and obviously because they're an AI computer, they can just bang in a perfect lap time and do it. So that's always the tricky thing here on the F1 game, going up against a computer, trying to get as pin perfect as we can, but obviously mistakes will crop in. But it's a very good third lap there. Verstappen down in P14 with me at the moment, P13, we go very quick indeed in the last sector and go up into P4. And actually, by the end of it, Verstappen also set a lap time to up into P2. So for a second, I was worried that was our pace in the wet, because both me and Max were close together in P13 and 14. But both of us go faster on the third lap, or last lap of the session rather, because I don't know how many laps he did. But we make it through, so all's not lost. It looks like we actually have some pace, and I'm not totally horrendous at driving in the wet conditions with a compromised setup. So we continue on, and obviously just trying to make it through now into the top 10 shootout. Again, filling up on a decent amount of fuel, but we've also used the same set of wet tyres I used in Q1, so they're a little bit worn out because I want to save the fresh set for Q3, and due to that, and also just a bit of eagerness on the throttle, we make a massive mistake on that second run in the first sector early on, lose all the time we were going to gain there, so we have to go again for a third lap actually there, so I kind of had to go for a bit of a slow second lap on lean mixture to make sure I have enough fuel for this third run, because I actually only fueled up for 2 runs in a row, but I've done 3 flying laps technically out here on circuit, but obviously the second one was kind of void. The third one, much better there, and we go very close to Verstappen, about 1.5 tenths off Ocon. Ocon looking very handy in the wet. I'm sure what's happened here is, I feel, is, you know, when Leclerc got, you know, obviously multiple wins at the end of Season 2, I think, you know, that does boost AI's form and how good they are in terms of consistency and whatnot. So I think Ocon getting that win last episode, don't be surprised to see Ocon right there, you know, at the sharp end, bothering us, and the likes of, you know, Ferrari and Red Bull if they're there. You know, I think McLaren are here, and they've announced themselves clearly with a 1-2 last episode, but I think especially Ocon, he could be dangerous, because the AI system in this game, I think, really heavily, you know, sways towards having consistent winning runs. Like, when an AI gets that, as was the case with Leclerc, as I just mentioned, I think it's just so powerful. And obviously I know the most about that, because obviously my lead in the championship got completely overturned by that powerful nature. But in Q3, in the top 10 shootout, first run there, up into P3, pretty decent. Second run, we gained a little bit of time, but actually I'm now going to go down, you're about to see, even though we're good on the exit, for some reason, I don't know, just suddenly lost all the time. I don't know, like, it seemed like it was raining a little bit more, because there was a bit more wheel spin on the exit, so I didn't get on the power as kind of sharply as I could have beforehand. So I think it started raining even more at the end of the session, because I did not improve my lap time here. De Vries does. So at the moment we are in P3 still. Leclerc on provisional pole, Ocon second. Lando Norris there goes across the line and overtakes me, and he improves up into P4, so we get moved down to P5. I think that is literally by the man I just let through, but obviously I wasn't going to improve, and in the end Ocon does snatch the pole position. So what did I say? What did I just say? Ocon in the McLaren, race winner last episode, and he is now on pole. Leclerc P2. Ricciardo's done a banging job there to be up in P3, because Sainz, you may have noticed, I didn't actually even mention, Sainz got knocked out in Q2. He did not make the car, as did another of the 2 Mercedes cars. So a woeful day for the Spaniard with 2 wins to his name so far this season, and obviously the 2 Mercs have been pretty horrendous all season long, but big shows from Ricciardo there. For us, you know, it's a bit of a lower position. Obviously, it's only the third row there, but I think our car will only get faster in the race. So I think me and Verstappen are looking to move forwards rather than kind of stay stationary or go backwards in the race. So I'm actually quietly confident about this race. And of course, this is the place where we got our second win ever in this career mode save of ours last season. It's one of my favourite circuits in the game, as I've said before. So always looking forward to it. So let's go to Sunday and see what we can do from P5.
Bonjour! It's time once again to go racing here in Montreal, the second largest French-speaking city in the world, and home since 1978 to the Canadian Grand Prix. With top speeds of around 210 miles per hour heading into the overtaking opportunity of turn 13, the 2.7 miles of the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve are some of the quickest on the Formula One calendar. There are 14 corners in total, with 60% of the lap taken at full throttle, and average lap speeds clock in at about 130 miles per hour. And I'm joined once again by Anthony Davidson to bring you the lowdown for today's race. Now then, let's take a look at Nick De Vries. Looks like they've got a tough race in store today, as grid penalties from changing power unit components has forced them further down the field.
But on the bright side, at least those fresh components can help them maintain the power they need to come through the pack. I expect to see them take a more aggressive approach today to make up for the compromised start.
It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Esteban Ocon lines up on pole position, and it's Charles Leclerc in P2. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Ricciardo, the owner driver, Max Verstappen and Gasly, Stroll, Albon, Hamilton and Carlos Sainz, Bottas, Norris, George Russell and Giovinazzi, Matsushita, De Vries. They've taken a grid penalty. Sergio Perez and Roman Grosjean, Magnussen, Aitken, Latifi and Daniel Kvyat completes the grid. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track and get this Grand Prix underway.
Right, so thanks to Lando Norris having a grid penalty, we've actually moved up one place, as well as Max Verstappen as well, so we're P4 now. We're actually on the second row of the grid. We can see the pole man and our championship rival from last season, Leclerc, right ahead of us then, so we have maybe a good run into turn one. Potential to maybe get boxed in, though, on the outside. I'd rather be on the inside line, so we might look to try and cut in on the left on the race start. Strategy-wise, though, as per usual around Canada, a bit more tyre wear, so it is a two-stop, but I love that. Nice and aggressive. One set of soft tyres to two sets of mediums. In terms of fuel, that won't really be an issue, especially with the upgrades we made in the previous few episodes. The only thing, like I said, is the brakes upgrade would have been very handy, but as I mentioned just at the end of qualifying, our car hopefully would only get faster here in these dry conditions, especially for me, because I had a dry setup on and qualified still that well. So I think, I think we're aiming for the podium minimum here at Montreal. So let's get into this and try and rectify the kind of, missed opportunity we kind of had at Baku as a team. So with that, then we go to 5 red lights. The last race winner is on pole. Ocon in the McLaren. We're in P4. What can we do today? 5 red lights are out and we're underway, and it's a great start for us, and we almost jumped both Ricciardo and Leclerc into turn 1. Though Ricciardo with the dive bomb back, and he's made some contact with Leclerc, and he's round, and he's narrowly just missed Verstappen. I don't know how Verstappen has actually continued on there. I thought for sure there was going to be a T-bone collision, but Verstappen instead is now looking to the inside of me with a massive dive down the inside. He's almost off circuit. He is pretty much dipping a tyre into the grass, and that allows Albon to come through, as well as Sainz, as we're off-placed on the left-hand side, trying to get it back through down the inside of the Spaniard, but he's got the much better racing line. We're sent wide with some understeer there, naturally, with the way the circuit is, but also just having to give him some space and try and lift off the throttle a little bit, and the rear end steps, and Gasly, what on earth is he doing on the left-hand side? He tries to dive bomb us as well. Oh, it's just, a bit of a madness again. Lap 1, very hectic. Not as hectic as Baku, but still, something is in the water, in the coding, rather, of these AIs of late. They're having some bonkers starts, especially Verstappen there. One, he avoided that collision with Ricciardo, but then the send he had on me, I mean, he really did outbrake himself and went off circuit, and that pulled me wide, and unfortunately it allowed Albon and Sainz to come through, so we've got to try and now recompose ourselves and catch back up to him. But let's have a look then at a replay of that start and see what went on. You can see how much of a good start I got compared to Ricciardo, but then look at that. Yeah, he just, I don't know what was actually going through his head there, Ricciardo. He just kind of gets it all crossed up, goes over the curb, cuts the corner, and then just plows into the rear left tyre of Leclerc, spins himself round. He's lucky to still be in this race, but let's watch the onboard from Verstappen, because he got very lucky not to be collected in that spin. It literally was almost a T-bone, but look at that. Just a tiny tap of the front wing, no damage done, and Verstappen lives for the rest of the Grand Prix and is up into P3 now. So actually a wonderful start for Verstappen. On board with Hamilton. Let's have a look here what we're looking at, and it's going to be, it's going to be a very unlucky start there for Hamilton again. But look at this. That spin basically caused a whole pile up on the left. So ironically, I talked about wanting to be on the inside line for turn 1. It was actually a great thing I was on the outside because of that spin. So I guess everything happens for a reason in that kind of sense. So now, like I said, trying to recompose ourselves and catch back up to Sainz, who is looking to attack Albon. But I want to try and get both these guys because we have the pace to be quicker. Verstappen has already bolted. He's really been very, very quick in this Grand Prix, and I've been stuck in some dirty air behind these guys, so we just need to get a move on ASAP. That's going to be easier said than done. Sainz looking to make a move on Albon now on the outside, a long way around. It's going to be very fine. Albon actually does a really good job at coming back at him on the left-hand side. Will he get the traction? Yes, he does. He does get some good traction on the left-hand side, but Sainz will cut across on the racing line and get up into P4. But now that's our cue to pounce on Albon, and we're not going to make the mistake we did in Baku. We're going to go very early on the inside of him, and this time we're going to really get the elbows out and squeeze him out for good measure, just to let him know that what was a firm overtake from me, unlike in Baku. And now we can press on and try and catch up and pull in Carlos Sainz, and then look to maybe chase after Verstappen long-term in this race. But as it stands, lap number 7, we're not too far off the first pit stop. These soft tyres don't go too long. At the moment, we are slowly catching Sainz, but you can see the sector time's all red because the dirty air is kicking in, and causing a fuss. But on lap number 8, into the hairpin, we've had a much better Sector 2, and just in general, I think Stint is slowing down a little bit with the tyre wear kicking in for maybe his car. So can we try and make a move on this straight? I actually think about... I might come in on this lap, actually, as we overtake him, because we can get a major undercut on not only him, but also my teammate Verstappen. So as we go for the move on the left, we'll come in straight in. So technically, we have overtaken him, but he re-overtakes us straight away as we dive into the pit lane. But we should categorically definitely have him on the exit of his pit box, basically, once he makes his pit stop. And the thing is, this is not really to fight him. This is to maybe try and see if I can vault myself forwards and try and close up to Verstappen, because the undercut can be very, very powerful around Canada compared to most other places, especially if Verstappen hits some traffic maybe himself, or the tyre wear kicks him badly, because Sainz lost a lot of time on his laps, so maybe Verstappen might lose the same amount of time on his worn soft tyres. So here we are then on the mediums, lap number 10. Behind Sergio Perez, and feeling good on the mediums. They feel instantly so much better than those softs, actually. So I think Verstappen must surely be losing a decent amount of time, going on a further, 2 laps. This is lap number 10. So I think we have a good chance of being right there, or maybe even jumping him. Who knows? Because he was a few seconds up the road. But if he's lost that much time, as you might see on the left, yes it is. There we are then, purple last sector. We're through into turn 1, and we're up into P5 on the road, but Ricciardo and Russell ahead of us yet to pit, so we will be in a net P3 in this Grand Prix, and even Perez is between myself and Verstappen. Although, as was the case in stint number 1, Verstappen looking very punchy indeed. He's already on the back of Sergio Perez there, coming through on the left-hand side. Very interesting camera shot we have on the rear end, looking rearwards of Sergio Perez. But Verstappen gets through very easily then on the outside that actually was. So very audacious move actually, and makes it look very easy. And now he's got a lot of clean air to chase after myself. But at the moment we run on the road, it's going to be P5 and P6, but the 2 guys ahead of us yet to pit in this Grand Prix, so will be P3 and P4. Second place though is Charles Leclerc, and first is still Esteban Ocon with a dominant lead over Leclerc, looking very, very quick. You can see actually there the difference on the top left there from Ocon to Leclerc. So Ocon really taking a lot of confidence from that first race win, and his AI is just doing absolute work on another set of soft tyres, I might add as well. Lap number 12 here. So yeah, crazy stuff in pace from the Frenchman. Meanwhile for us, Verstappen looking rapid himself, and he's coming through with DRS. He's going to be right up our gearbox through the last chicane. Beautiful camera shot there as we whiz through, but you can see the neon green rear wing of Verstappen getting ever closer, and there he is on the left. Bit of contact made. We try and squeeze him as much as we can, but of course he's our teammate. We have to give him some respect and some room, a little bit more than we might do to other rivals, but he doesn't need it. He just out-tractions us. But he doesn't need that extra space. He just out-tractions us on the exit there with some ERS, I imagine, as well, even though we're deploying some, and he just waltzes past us. I feel especially in Sector 2, and also, to be fair, Sector 1 after turns 1 and 2, that the exit up the hill before the chicane dip down, he's just got so much better momentum change, direction change, acceleration and grip through there. But what I will say is, in a straight line, I think I am faster. My setup is a bit lower drag than he is, and we're pulling him in, and we're keeping up with him, and into lap 16 onto 17, great last chicane there, flying over those curbs, open DRS, a lot of ERS use, and Verstappen not too much, and we're going to go for the late lunge on the inside. It's heroic, and it might just be a bit too heroic as we have to slow the car down, and due to the lockup, Verstappen gets it back, but we gave it a good old effort there, just couldn't get it, very much like Daniel Ricciardo in 2014-esque, but this time we couldn't hold it through for the overtake on the grass there, because the rotation just wasn't possible with the lockup on the front left, and now the engine is starting to overheat a little bit as we're using a lot of rich mix here. So Verstappen keeping us at bay, but now it's all going up in smokes as Max Verstappen is going to pull over, and that's surely to retire the car. And again, for the second time in 3 episodes, or 4 episodes, 4 episodes, I think, the Spanish Grand Prix doesn't seem that too far ago now. But for the second time in 4 races, Verstappen is out of a Grand Prix due to an engine failure, up in flames. And I've just got to say, I'm actually just really upset for him. I'm actually quite fed up at that, because Ironically, you guys have told me to invest in durability, and I know there's going to be people using this now as an excuse to say something in the comments, but we've invested a lot. You don't know it, but I've quietly invested a lot in durability. We've upgraded about 3 different tiers of control electronics. We've upgraded MGK durability, MGH durability, gearbox. We've done work on durability, and time again, as has been the case in previous F1 games, the player just never gets plagued with the same durability issues as your teammate or just other AI, and it's frustrating. You know, honestly, I would rather take the hit and be like, okay, the game just, you know, assesses, Verstappen's had 1 DNF already, let's give the player this DNF. Like, if my engine went pop right now, yes, I'll be annoyed. Yes, it'd be annoyed, but that's the whole point. That's F1. It's sometimes not a fairy tale. It's sometimes very harsh. And I really want them in the future, next gen. It's so simple. Just have a little option that allows the player to turn off or on the possibility of player failures. Because as someone like me who created a YouTube series, wants to keep it refreshing, somewhat realistic as well, and just interesting, it would be great just to have random failures that are out of my control completely. And not fair, because the AI, they're going to get failures throughout the season. At least they'll have at least 1 issue, at least every season. Whereas the player, as long as I'm fairly consistent, I can avoid that issue. And it's just very frustrating. So yeah, just a small random mini rant in this episode about that, just because yeah, 2 in 4 episodes. It's just a bit annoying really for Verstappen, especially he's going to lose out a load of points because of that. And that's a shame for the team, but that's also a shame for him in the championship fight. But anyway, back to our race then. Sainz right up our chuff, where we've lost some pace here a little bit on this new set of medium tyres. As Sainz looking very quick. He pit a lot earlier than us, and he's managed to jump his way back up the field after being a little bit slow after I overtook him in the first round of pit stops. And he goes right around the outside of us. And to be fair, Lando Norris also looking very rapid in the McLaren. And to be honest, I might actually tactically let Lando through, because I think honestly that McLaren's got great pace, clearly shown by Ocon in the lead of this race. If Norris goes to overtake Sainz and I overtake Sainz with Norris, kind of using him as a kind of horse and carriage, I think that's the best way to get back up into this P4 that I'm currently in, because I have a feeling either way I will be overtaken by 1 car. I think it will have to be the it will have to be the McLaren, because I think that's the faster car of these two. So we kind of don't put up much of a fight against Norris, to be honest, and we're going to try this tactical plan and see how it goes. 10 laps to go, and we'll just see where we are. But to my surprise, only 2 laps later, and I'm already starting to pressurize Norris once again. He's behind Sainz now, tucked up behind, so Sainz is almost the slowest out of all 3 of us now, and he's backing Norris back up into me. So curious to see if Norris will make a move now on Sainz on this straight. He's got DRS open. We're just biding our time here, trying to cool down the engine a little bit by moving right out of the dirty air. But here goes the Brit now. Good exit off that chicane. DRS open for both of us, but he's close. Will he make a move? He pulled through to the left. It's so close for Lando Norris there on the right-hand side. Sainz really shuts the door on him last minute, and he almost has to go into the grass, the young Brit does, and he has to remain in P4. But now he really is slow. He's actually being slowed up so much by Sainz that I almost rear-ended him now in the hairpin. And so in the end of it, ironically, I let them both by kind of easily, because I thought they've got more pace. They're going to overtake me. I'll use them to go faster as a bit of a DRS tow. I'm now the one that's faster than them, and Lando is going to make the overtake difficult for us. We go round the outside. It's a very difficult move to make there, as he really keeps his footing on the inside, but we get the job done up into P4, and now we start to chase after Sainz as well on lap number 32. We've got plenty of DRS. We've got some fuel to play around. We're going to have DRS as well on him on the back straight, so let's just be patient about this, and the overtake will come for us on the last few laps of this Grand Prix. It's looking like we'll get that podium finally after a long while of being off it, and we'll join Leclerc and Ocon as we come knocking. Sainz goes defensive a little bit, but we go through on the right easily. And so in the end, after letting them both through, we overtake them both and pull their pants down in this Grand Prix, and kind of show some kind of fighting spirit there of keep on pushing on. You know, it would have been quite easy for me to give up at that point, but we pushed on and we got back up into P3. Ocon will win his 2nd win in F1 in a row as well. Leclerc second, myself in third, but big shame to the likes of Verstappen. Ricciardo as well got kind of no-scoped out that race early on, early days. And the driver there to Lando Norris, who recovered quite well there from the grid penalty, obviously, that he received. But for us, it's back on the podium, and it's a good feeling to be back.
That's it then for another magnificent Canadian Grand Prix, and they've hung on to take a sublime victory here today. So, Anthony, what made the difference out there today?
Well, this was a real team victory. They put together a solid strategy today that appeared well suited to the conditions out on track. The driver did everything that was expected of them in the moment to really execute the team's plan to perfection. A shining example of how F1 really is a team sport.
Our winning drivers are on their way to the podium right now. It's been a fantastic race for McLaren, that's for sure, and no doubt they'll be celebrating tonight.
There you have it then, the Frenchman, 2 wins in a row. Like I said, a bit ominous, you know, because when that happened to Leclerc, it just, you know, things clicked for him in Season 2. So let's watch out for this. If he goes on for a 3rd win in a row, or at least looks strong at the next race at France, at his home GP actually, so there's a good chance of it, we might have another Leclerc story on our hands in terms of an AI just getting in the groove, getting in the form, and just bossing it and killing everything and being so dominant. But, well, we'll have to kind of remains to be seen on that part exactly. But for us then, like I said, podium, it's going to be a bit of damage limitation essentially against Leclerc, but he does get it within under 10 points now in the championship to us in 2nd place. Verstappen still holds 3rd. Ocon now splits the 2 Red Bulls in the Drivers' Championship. Constructors-wise, we're still looking pretty decent because, of course, De Vries has not scored too much for Ferrari, and also Red Bull, they've actually been more consistent than Ferrari, so they're the ones in 2nd place, and they lost out today for sure, and so they're down to P3 because of that, and McLaren are closing up a little bit, but those 3 teams taking points off each other is just helping us to stay afloat in 1st place, so no complaints there, but of course it could have been so much better with Verstappen right up there, and again, just lamenting that engine failure, unfortunately, which, yeah, I already know that some of you guys are going to be talking about durability upgrades because of that, ironically, it's just poor timing, because honestly, we have invested a lot, I feel like. I'm almost surprised and fed up that he had an engine failure, because it's like you purchase, you know, 3 upgrades on durability over the course of the start of the season here. What's the point if his engine goes pop twice in 4 races and it doesn't infect you as a player? It just doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, if you guys did enjoy that episode nonetheless, then be sure to hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you are new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula content. I've been aarava. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.